women mate and date for gain, men must resign themselves to mate and date for acceptable loss. Older women are very, very expensive. A 50-year-old woman no longer has any direct reproductive value. Many of the goods for which men transacted their commitment will have ended. However, men are still expected to provide provisioning and resources and exclusive commitment to these women for the rest of their lives.
Presented by Orion Taraban, PsycHacks provides viewers with a brief, thought-provoking video several days a week on a variety of psychological topics inspired by his clinical practice. The intention is for the core ideas contained within each video to inspire viewers to see something about themselves or their world in a slightly different light. The ultimate mission of the channel is to reduce the amount of unnecessary suffering in the world. Sounds great. I'm here for that. I think there is a lot of unnecessary suffering in our day-to-day conversations and the way that we interact with each other. I think it's really, really hard to be someone who has never been taught how to love, yet loves so deeply and doesn't know how to express that. It's frustrating to hold all of your feelings in when all you need is a way to get them out. But I've learned through trial and error that I can't just trust people on the internet. Through trial and error on this channel itself, where I let people yap about their specialties and then I go, oh yeah, that's a good point. And then my comment section is like, good point, true, but that dude's kind of weird. And then I have to go, oh, my bad, sorry. And I look into them and you're right. That's entirely my fault. So I Googled him, okay? I've learned. And I found a forum on studentdoctor.net speaking specifically about him, licensed psychologist or red pill guru. Introducing Orion Taraban, PsyD, author of The Value of Others, Understanding the Economic Model of Relationships to Get and Keep More of What You Want in the Sexual Marketplace, and owner of the YouTube channel PsycHacks. Orion has amassed quite the audience and has appeared on several other YouTube channels such as Soft White Underbelly, The Diary of a CEO, and Leveling Up. And this is where it starts to get a little weird. He is a licensed clinical psychologist who openly talks about people's sexual marketplace value. He says that a woman's peak value is at 18 and gradually declines throughout her life, with her best years between 18 and 25. In contrast, he argues that men's peak value starts at 30 and continues to rise thereafter. He asserts that women should be, and I quote, nastiest, sluttiest version of yourself to keep and get a man, even suggesting that sex is the Trojan horse to get into the city. He supports his argument based on experiences in client therapy and consultation, saying that a guy is not going to hit and quit a woman who does the freaky, nasty stuff for him because he knows he can't get that on the street corner. These quotes are based on a Soft White Underbelly interview that was done 7 months ago on love and marriage. Now, unfortunately, as you've probably been told over and over again the last week, I'm staying at my partner's house. I don't have time to go over multiple videos because I just want to spend as much time with her as I possibly can. And she does not have that long until she gets home from work. So I don't think I can go through multiple videos today, but we'll go into this response sort of that he has, why so many people get upset with my content responding to haters. But I want to make a point that I've made a couple of times on this channel is that no matter what you do, no matter what kind of content you create or how good or bad of a person you are, there are going to be people who are very loudly going to disagree with you. I could say something like, and it's happened in practice, if you're an estranged parent because you've hit your kids and they don't talk to you anymore, that's your fault. And I have dozens of estranged parents in my comments going, it's your job to put up with your parents no matter what they do. So I understand that sometimes you can be right and it's directed at the wrong people. I think it's really, really hard to say something like, a guy's not going to hit and quit a woman who does the freaky nasty stuff for him because he knows he can't get that on the street corner and defend yourself. It's really, really hard to say things where we put an entire group of people, an entire gender of people into one category and be like, well, I've talked to enough men, I know it's true. Because specifically for something like this, if you've talked to enough men, he says, these are my experiences in my practice. If you've talked to enough men who think this way, consider that the men who think this way may be the problem. Consider that you will have a large audience of men who think that women are just around to make their lives easier, and that doesn't mean women should conform. Are there women out there who want to be trad wives in that sense? Yeah. Absolutely. There are women out there who just want to please their man, and there are men out there who just want to please their women. There are non-binary people who are also just people pleasers. There are people who just want to make their person feel good and get a really, really deep sense of satisfaction from that. That's completely understandable, but that is an entirely different point than saying, oh, a bunch of men that come see me want this type of woman that they would never admit to wanting, that they never even be able to ask their partner for, that they themselves wouldn't put in the work that it takes to make your partner comfortable enough to let that out of her. They want that type of woman. How do I teach them to ask for that rather than saying, hey, maybe just find someone you love that loves you and introduce the things that you want within your relationship? It seems to be really hard to find positive male role models, and I'm very lucky in that I did not grow up on the internet and did not need this. But why is it so easy to find the opposite? Why is it so easy to find people that are so willing to just help you become the worst version of yourself? A psychologist's thoughts on love and marriage, the mechanics behind childhood trauma, why beautiful women are nuts and successful men are, the meaning of life, and other topics. The soft white underbelly video is an hour long, and as much as I really am interested in it, that has to be for when I'm home and lonely and afraid of what happens when I turn the camera off. Right now I have a lot of great things coming home to me. That being said, feel free to recommend videos in the comments. I screenshot all of them. Sometimes I respond with like clarification. For the most part, I see all the comments and I do screenshot a lot of the recommendations. I just also have 4 pages of notes that I forget about as to videos I want to make. We're going to skip the soft white underbelly interview, and I'm going to cut out the part where I talk about how soft white underbelly is, you know, probably not the best person out there. And we're going to save that. And I do mean save that for when I am back in my little house. Now let's hear this man respond to all the haters. The title of this video again is why some people get so upset with my content responding to haters. It's so funny to me because when I was 14, my Facebook banner was Eminem going, "Got haters? Good. That means you did something right." But I was 14, dude. I don't know. I can't imagine being like an adult and being like, "Oh, my haters, my ops are coming to get me. A damn flag on HG." Is everyone excited for the Chikorita Totodile Tepig lineup? I actually really like Tepig. I know people don't, but one of the hardest Pokemon challenges I ever did, the video that never came out, was doable because of Tepig and Emboar. But also I'm probably starting with Totodile.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is why some people get so upset with my content. Now, I've been doing this now for about 3 years, and I would say that the response to my content on the whole has been extremely positive, like 99% positive, which is a joy and an honor.
So on the soft white underbelly interview, where that quote earlier comes from about how women should be, the pinned comment reads, "After reading many of these ridiculous comments under this video shows me that many of you Fantasyland idealists didn't hear this part. 45 minutes in, the knowledge that we're looking for is awareness on how reality works, not how we want it to work, not how we think it should work, not how our society tells us it's supposed to look, but how it actually works. Because if we can understand the principles and the laws by which reality operates, we can flow with those current events and we won't be vulnerable when we're out in the open sea." Which I think to someone who doesn't go into these concepts very much sounds pretty smart. We're not focused on what we think reality should be. But the thing is, reality is shaped by who we are within it. I don't want to participate in a reality where I have to be disrespectful to women to get their attention. As an adult, I've never been disrespectful to people that I have been attracted to, and I've never had an issue with those people being attracted to me. It has always worked out, and I've always believed in treating people like they're people. The idea that always gets the girl isn't really because they're an and we're not in a movie. It's because people who aren't necessarily bashful, shy, who are more upfront about what they want, who they are, and how they're going to treat you, are more attractive than people that are like, "Well, I'm a nice guy. I would treat you so much better." Would you? Because you can't even make eye contact. And being one of those people that's like, well, the reality is women should be disrespected because it's what they want, is an easy way to be some dude who got a degree from a diploma mill talking about women online. I have women friends who've fallen terribly ill with cancer, lost their breasts, endured the ravages of multiple rounds of chemo, and their husbands have stayed with them and loved them through their grave illness. If the only thing keeping a man around a particular woman is that she's sexy and puts out, what a miserable, shallow existence. It's not just about money, status, or sex. Real relationships are much more complicated. I met my husband over 20 years ago when he was a dishwasher. We fell in love and the rest is history. There have been times when I was a breadwinner and other times when he is. Now I stay home with our baby son and he works. I'm thankful I never gave a rat's ass about any of these games. We work hard together and lean on each other for friendship and guidance. Thank God for good men. And I want you to ask, before you decide whose advice to take, I want you to ask yourself who it is that you want to be. Do you want to be the dude interviewing another dude about how women think? Or do you want to be one of these people who is in a lifelong relationship? Because if you're like me and you decide you would rather be happy in your relationship than popular online with a bunch of single men, then maybe you should follow the advice of the people that are in the relationship that you want to be in yourself, and not the people who maybe kind of make sense if your brain is not developed emotional intelligence yet. We're not children. And we don't just bully each other because we like each other. Last year, I went through a phase of listening to this guy, and while he makes some logical points, which is an interesting way to argue because we can make anything sound logical, the biggest effect his words had on me was making me feel suspicious towards my loving, supportive wife. His perspective encouraged me to resent working to provide our family with the stability we needed to grow. At the end of the day, it's our choice whether you reside in the worldview Dr. Taraban spins. Remember that he has a target audience, maybe you're not it. If you have high goals and morals, don't be swayed by anyone who leads you toward bitterness. I think, unfortunately, the target audience is men who are not yet sure of who they are and what they want, what to look for and how to act about it. And so they fall into being people who are then a little resentful towards women, whether or not they meant to be or should be. They shouldn't be. But I'm going to leave the rest of their comments because there's a lot of interesting comments for when we actually get to that video.
That said, about 1% of the feedback I receive from folks is extremely negative. And this feedback always pertains to my views on intersexual dynamics and the game of mating and dating. And today I'm going to discuss why this is the case.
I think that's probably where a lot of this stems from, is thinking of dating and mating like a game rather than an experience. I think if you were to say within your relationship, it's a game in the way that you both play, we can have that conversation. However, I think to say that dating as a whole is a game is a scary concept, because then you get a bunch of people that don't know that no means no, and they go, well, it's a game and they're playing hard to get. And that is not something I would ever encourage.
In the first place, it's important to appreciate that virtually none of this negative feedback is substantive. Like, it almost never pertains to any of my arguments. Rather, it almost entirely consists of insults, defamation, and ad hominem attacks.
The couple of comments I did see were about the content, and everything I'm going to say is about the content. Granted, diploma mill, red pill, generic white dude, maybe some of those are warranted.
Which frankly is why it's difficult to take this feedback seriously and why it doesn't really bother me. To me, there is no more obvious confession that someone has lost an argument than resorting to ad hominems.
Completely outside the point. I've had people say that to me. However, the thing is, I don't like wasting my time arguing with people. So if you're going to sit yourself in front of me and waste my time arguing with me, and I know you're not someone who wants to have a conversation, rather you just want to be right, yeah, I'm just going to make fun of you. I think that's funny. Like, if you're going to waste my time, I'm at least going to spend my time working on my material. Like, if Andrew Tate and I got into an argument, he's never going to change his mind about anything, right? So I'm just going to go bald. Bald, dude. Did you go bald on purpose, dude? Or is that so people have a good grip on your head, dude? For like stuff where they have to hold your head, dude. And when you're like crying in people's laps, dude. So, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. No, you were probably bullied as a kid for a reason. That's at him specifically.
If my attackers could prove me wrong, I have to assume that they would at least try to do so, as that would be a much greater victory for them. So I just hear those attacks as declarations of surrender. Responding to them at face value would be tantamount to kicking someone when they're down. That said, they do constitute a fascinating phenomenon. So what's really going on here? What you have to understand is that most people aren't very self-aware. And a lot of what I talk about actually takes place beneath the threshold of awareness. For instance, it's absolutely true that relationships are the medium through which value is transacted, and that people tend to enter into relationships where they most stand to gain or stand least to lose.
I also have trouble taking people seriously when they go, this conversation is only for smart people, and most people aren't smart. I am again of the belief that most people are capable of having this conversation. There's a level of wanting that has to apply to it, but most people are capable of sitting here and listening or sitting here and engaging. And I don't think we have to be like, most people are dumb, which is why I don't take my comments seriously. Sure. I like to assume people are wrong before I assume that they're dumb. And I do a lot of like making fun of people like this on here, but like that's because we're never going to have a conversation. And if we did, I probably would still make fun of them just to their face. So every now and then I'll get a comment that's like, I can't believe you said this. And I'll respond with, are you sure I said that? Go back to this timestamp. And then they'll respond with something like, oh, my bad, I misunderstood. Oh no, the person that you were criticizing said that and you repeated it. Stuff like that. And I don't like immediately go, oh, this person's just stupid.
The issue is that the perception of value and gain and loss is actually dependent on a very complex, covert calculus of which most people are almost entirely unaware. And this calculus consists of an uncountable number of micro-evaluations that accumulate into a judgment of attractiveness.
I'm going to put that into the terms of my relationship. If I were to do every little thing for my partner and she did absolutely nothing, how many of those things could I do? How many transactions could be accumulated before I go, this isn't fair, I'm not enjoying it? And specifically, for the person I'm with now, I don't see myself ever hitting that threshold. I am so deeply in love with this person that I would let them take advantage of me to the point where I lost myself completely before I noticed. Is that healthy? No, but it's also not something that would actually happen. She is such a beautiful person who does such wonderful things for me, and I am never going to be able to pay her back for as nice as she is, regardless of how hard I try. And that's what your relationship should be, right? It should be two or more, if that's what you're into, people trying to, not necessarily trying to outdo each other, but loving each other just a little bit more than they think they're able to. There is nothing I think I can do to pay her back for the way that she has treated me, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I'm always going to try. And the day that I don't will not be the day that I go, it's not worth it anymore. It'll be the day that I fail as a person. I've had relationships, too many relationships. And in some of them, I've had the thought of like, I don't really want to do this for this person. And it's not because they won't do it for me. It's not because I'm providing more in this transaction. It's because I just did not love that person in the way that they deserve to be. I was just trying to love the wrong person. And they were doing the same thing. And I think now I get to love the right person. And I want to do it as hard as I can for as long as I can without worrying about what I'm getting back from it. And I get a lot back from it. Like here's us baking a cake the other day. Do you know how much fun this was? And do you know how much she had to take care of me during this process? Like I've only ever baked cookies before. So this entire process was new to me. And it's scary and it's embarrassing and it's, what if I can't do this right? What if I get flour all over myself? I did. But anything she wants, I'm so happy to try to do with her. And I'm supposed to consider this a transaction? I'm supposed to hold on to this and say, I did this for you. What, now I expect you to do whatever for me? No. Why would I do that? Why would I waste my time? Why wouldn't you just want to be with someone who loves you the right way instead of creating this idea of women in your head and going, I want this woman specifically to love me the way I want to be loved. Regardless if it's the way that she does or does not love, she will change for me because I'm worth changing for. When you're probably not. You're probably not that guy that's worth changing for. And there are plenty of ways that can change that. Money, for example. Are you a billionaire? Are you a millionaire? Are you going to be attracting women, men, non-binary people who want to be taken care of in life, so they're willing to do all the housework, they're willing to do all of these things, stuff like that. We're just two normal people with a little bit of credit card debt, living our lives, trying to make each other happy, and doing a really good job. And that's what love should be.
These evaluations occur in the context of your memory and past relationships, and in the context of your goals and future plans, and in the context of your own self-evaluation and self-image. They predict whether another person can give you what you want, and if they can, whether they will be willing to give it to you. They evaluate global personality traits like character and more circumscribed attributes like loyalty or sexiness or sense of humor that are weighted given their relative importance and relevance to the evaluator. And they also estimate the costs the evaluator expects to incur in the procurement and maintenance of the relationship.
I get what he's doing, and it's probably really attractive to people who have not been into many relationships or have been in relationships that have not worked out to talk about this all like it's all just product and transactional. I don't like it, but I'm just not the audience for that part. In terms of memory of your past relationships, you should be careful holding on to things, especially if they're things that you were hurt by. You should be careful of saying, oh, my last partner cheated on me, so my next one is going to, and the next one's going to, and the next one is going to. You really don't want to bring negativity like that over. Like relationships, especially when they're starting, are so easy to sour. And then you get into these weird moments where like that person then goes, oh, I would never cheat on you. And then maybe they do. And now you've had a couple of people cheat on you. And you have this added weight of like, they said they would never, or they said they would never hurt me. And then it just doesn't work out. And now you're this person who's like, oh, everyone I've ever loved has hurt me. You just have to find the right person to love you. And you're probably, most likely, going to go through plenty of wrong people. There's a number. And pretend it's 37. Pretend you're going to be in 36 bad relationships or relationships that just don't work out before you get to the one that does. You'll be okay. It's just time. And as much as you feel like you're running out of time, you're not. You'll have too much time. Trust me. In terms of attractiveness, sense of humor, stuff like that being weighted, I made the mistake of dating people who were very, very nice to me, but who I never really thought were funny. And it took me a long time to realize that that's what I wanted. I wanted someone who was going to make me laugh. Everything else was pretty much secondary. I wanted someone who could make me laugh. And Lee is so much funnier than I am. And I'm so lucky. So you should figure out what it is that you want. I'd be careful of going, I just want someone that's really attractive. Maybe that's not the most important thing. Otherwise, I would get Lee. Lee would not get me. All right. You don't have to tell me I'm not attractive. I'll do that part for us.
And they also estimate the costs the evaluator expects to incur in the procurement and maintenance of the relationship.
Oh, I paid for our food, so you have to sleep with me. But it's not sex. That person's just narcoleptic and needs to nap.
Both in terms of the actual expenditure of resources and in terms of foregone reproductive opportunities. And all of this occurs beneath the threshold of awareness in large part.
But that's so weird to think about. Like, oh, I'm wasting my time with you. I need to be with someone who is going to provide me babies. If you are considering your relationship a waste of time, one of two things. One, it's a waste of time. Or two, you have no real sense of time. If you're one of the people that like Girl Defined was like, I need to be married by 20, you're going to freak everyone out. Chill. You need to try and enjoy the ride. You need to try and enjoy the process of, instead of just praying that the destination is actually what you want.
Very few people are going to consciously think to themselves, I've decided to enter into a relationship with this person because I believe it will be a net gain for me in that the benefits I expect to receive will significantly exceed the costs associated with acquiring them.
A good rule for saying things like this is, could you say them to the person that you're courting without being weird? No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't look at your first date, and go, I am currently processing if this date is worth the money I'm putting into it. If you are going to be worth the money I'm putting into you. If you're going to put out and provide me children. I am currently taking all of that into account.
That sounds cold, calculating, and inhuman. But if we were to pop the hood and examine the components of a person's decision, this is what we would find.
You get into two schools of thought, and I am of the belief that love is irrational. You can rationalize it all you want, but falling in love is the dumbest act. Giving yourself up to a person to the point where they could destroy you with a few words is so dumb. It's irrational, and it happens. So to rationalize it feels like stripping yourself of all the parts that make you human, and that just doesn't seem like it's a life worth living for me. It's like Leonard's parents. I think it's Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. I've only seen a couple episodes where his mom's like, oh, your dad and I only ever slept together twice, and it was to procreate. It might have been like the main character's parents. I can't remember. But it's like that. That's the life you want, dude, because that's how you're talking.
It sounds psychotic to verbalize, but it accurately reflects what's going on beneath the surface. So what happens in the vast majority of cases is that the final calculation gets transmuted into a feeling. For instance, when this covert calculus predicts that the value of a certain relationship is going to significantly exceed its costs, people don't think to themselves, this is a beneficial transaction for me. They think, I'm pretty excited about this person. She's great.
If we were going to do this, if we were going to talk about this like it's all strictly numbers, then no date is ever worth it. You can find so many videos on YouTube, articles from Google that are like, I swiped 10,000 times and only got 3 matches. You are wasting so much of your time trying to find one person to spend your life with. And if you're going to put that into numbers, you're going to waste a lot more time than you ever make up. It's not worth it. Stop dating. You're going to spend a lot more money on first dates that don't work out than on one first date that does. Stop trying. It's irrational. Stop trying to rationalize it and start just living life, dude. This has to be so alluring to men who are so emotionally stunted. I will say, I don't think they're incapable. I think they just aren't there yet. And they haven't been taught how to be like, no. Don't worry about all the things that are going to happen within your relationship in terms of emotions. Don't worry about love. Don't worry about the feeling of love. Worry about the transaction of it. But that's so scary. That is so scary. That is so scary. I would hate that. I'm going to be very honest and say at 16, right? 15, 16, this kind of conversation probably would have worked on me because I just was so alone and unsure of how to become anyone. But as an adult now, I look at this and I go, this is just terrible advice. And maybe you want that, but I personally don't want that marriage where I am with someone I don't love. I spend all my weekends with my male friends in my man cave, and I only really interact with this person to sleep with. That doesn't sound good to me. I am with my best friend, and I'm so lucky to be able to say that. And I would not be with her if I listened to the advice of people like this.
On the other hand, when the calculus predicts that the value of a relationship is not going to significantly exceed its costs, people don't think to themselves, this is a wash and therefore a loss to me as it is preventing me from entering into more personally beneficial transactions. They think, she's a really nice girl, but I feel like something is missing.
Again, this goes in a couple of different places. She's a really nice girl, but I feel like something is missing. I've had a couple of friends, specifically one friend, and he's never going to see this video despite telling me he likes my content. I think he's just being nice. He talks about how he doesn't like surface level conversation. And so most of the women that he talks to, he ends up not talking to after a couple of days. And I've sat him down twice to try and explain that most people are very, very capable of deeper conversations, of talking about ideas and not just their days. But there's a level of comfortability that has to be associated with it. Most people don't want to just hand out all their ideas to strangers for multiple reasons. And so to get to know someone, you might want to give it a few conversations and a few days and a few dates before you go, oh, this person only likes small talk. No, most people like talking about who they are, their wants, their needs, their loves. They just don't want to hand it to every stranger who may weaponize it, or just every stranger in general. And I think that's okay. I do a lot of head nodding. If you and I ever get into a conversation, I do a lot of head nodding and a lot of like, yeah, that's dope. Cool. But I'm more than capable of having real conversations. I just don't really like having them with people I don't know all the time. So to cut off every date early and be like, they're nice, but I'm not really getting this like deep conversation, when you yourself are probably not that deep, especially if you're talking this way where you're like, everything's a transaction. Yeah, that's right. I'm smart. I don't know. Maybe consider that you're not that guy, dude.
Or, I'm just not sure. I guess I could make it work.
On the other side, you don't really owe anyone a second date, regardless of what side of this you're on. If you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. I'm not telling you to like force yourself into longer relationships. If you're not feeling it, for whatever reason, and you don't want a second date or even a second half to the first one, you're good. You're so good. Don't worry about it.
And of course, when the calculus predicts that the costs of a relationship...
Dude, stop saying calculus. Like, it's not... If all these words were created into a formula, it would not be a calculus formula. At worst, it would be algebra. Because it's just not that deep. It is not that deep. You're not pulling out curves and trying to find these tiny, tiny areas. You're good. Chill.
...will significantly exceed its value. People don't think the benefits I receive in this transaction do not justify its expense. They think, not if you were the last man on earth. Or, I think of us more as friends. What happens is that this value calculation gets transmuted into an emotion, which motivates people to either approach and invest or withdraw and avoid. People are aware of this emotion, but not what aroused the emotion. Most of the time, that isn't an issue. However, if you want to understand how people actually make decisions...
The first half of this was good because you should understand why you feel the way you feel, and a little bit of why other people may feel that way. But to answer other people's questions for them in a broad sense, when you're trying to have dates with specific people, isn't going to get you very far. There's a story on TikTok the other day, and this woman was talking about how she was in her like, I hate all men phase. And on the first date with this man, he went to the bathroom for half an hour, and she assumed that he left. And so she was packing up. She called her friend to come pick her up, and she was like, okay, I get it. Like, I was being really mean. I probably would have left too. And as she was getting up, the man came out of the bathroom and he was like, sorry, I know it's our first date. This is TMI, but I have IBS. And now they're married. If you put me in that situation as the woman, I also feel like he left, and I would have left after 10 minutes. If you put me in that situation as the man, why is she being mean to me? I can't handle this. So I, in either side of that relationship, would have failed. And now they're married. So understand that the way that you think and the way that you react cannot be the exact same way that other people do so as well. Again, especially within irrational things like love. If you are so curious as to why someone is doing something, ask, hey, why were you in the bathroom for half an hour? I thought you left. Sorry, I had IBS. Hey, why are you being so mean? Sorry, I don't mean to be. I am sheltering myself from being hurt by men again. Ask. You should ask the questions you want answers to.
You have to hack into this deeper process. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message.
Don't do that, but please like my video. Subscribe if you haven't. He just did all of his ads, so I'm going to do mine. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell me how tall you are. Don't. I'm just going to make fun of you. Also a joke, but like, I don't need to know your height. Patreon. Tomorrow, I'm making Lee sit on this couch with me and watch a 90 Day Fiancé. So that'll be on the Patreon sometime in the next few days. She has a regular 9 to 5 job. Monday through Friday. And so there has not been a lot of time to like do stuff like that.
I guarantee that people enter into relationships with their perceived best options. Like, it wouldn't make sense to argue that people would forgo a better opportunity for a worse one.
I think when you don't have a lot of experience being a person or dating and you decide that you want to have these conversations, you forget that most people are afraid of other people. And so most people are entering relationships with people who have made themselves available or made it known that they're interested.
Our genetic line would likely have stopped ages ago if that were the case. So if people enter into relationships with their perceived best options, then the perception of value is at the heart of why people enter into relationships. It's also sufficient to explain a great deal of behavior, especially a great deal of the bad behavior in the sexual marketplace.
So a lot of what was just said was a lot of perceived, a lot of supposed, a lot of yes, but we're not talking about theory. We're talking about people in the real world dating. And that's an entirely different conversation. It's entirely different for me to say people should enter into marriages with the person that they're going to love for the rest of their life than it is for me to say people do enter into marriages with the person they're going to love for the rest of their life. One of those is an idea that I think a lot of us would agree with. Another one is something that can be looked at and have numbers applied to. So people should get into relationships with the person that is best for them. Absolutely true. People get into relationships with the person that is best for them. Cannot be true. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and you're probably not going to find your best mate when you're in high school, middle school, college, in your country maybe. But we do, and we form love rather than find it sometimes. And I think falling in love is an active practice. And I don't think it has to be genetic. I don't think it has to be like, oh, this person in mine's immune systems would make incredible babies. It's okay to say that things are irrational and not always explained by science.
It's also sufficient to explain a great deal of behavior, especially a great deal of the bad behavior in the sexual marketplace. Everything.
Sexual marketplace is wild. Imagine getting on Facebook and under marketplace, people are like, all right, 2 pumps, $2. I don't like that.
From divorce and monkey branching to ghosting and infidelity. Now, the folks who are critical of the economic model of relationships, they still make decisions every day about who they spend their time with and with whom they enter into relationships.
Yes, but that's backwards. That's the same way that the girl-defined sisters are like, oh, you want a long-term relationship despite not being as Christian as we are? That's a Christian mindset. Actually, it all goes all the way back to God. You hopefully spend time with people that you enjoy. Well, that's a sexual marketplace for you. No, it's just being a person. And it's not that deep. I hope your friends like you, and I hope that you like your friends. And I don't think it should be that hard.
And these decisions are predicated on the perception of value. But here's the thing. Many of the things that people value are not socially acceptable or politically correct. For instance, there are plenty of men who married the hottest woman they could get. That's it. That was the primary criterion.
Okay. If that's the basis of your entire marriage, then I hope it works out.
And there are many women who married because they were afraid that they'd end up alone if they didn't. Like, they didn't really like the guy or certainly not love him. They just were afraid.
Okay, I guess this is where I ask all of you, if you're in this type of relationship or you have been, I don't care what side of this you are gender-wise. Like, if you're a man, non-binary, woman, whatever else, and you married someone just because they were the most attractive person you could, or you married someone because you were afraid to be alone, how is that working out? And that's an actual question. I'm not looking for you to be like, it didn't go good, but I don't think that applies to much of my audience.
And that's what motivated them to enter into that relationship. So people hide these reasons almost always from other people, but very often from themselves. A lot of people haven't done the work to integrate the socially unacceptable parts of themselves, especially given our current topic of discussion, their superficiality.
Wait, does this guy have an innie? Is he severed? Is that why he's talking like this? Or is this your innie? This is his innie. And his outie's like in a marriage and his innie doesn't know anything about it. And he's like, probably just married the hottest woman out there. That's wild.
And their selfishness. They would like to believe that these parts don't exist inside of them, which just isn't true. However, in the absence of integration, they can really only deny and disavow these aspects of their personality. This makes it likely that they won't come into emotional contact with these distressing parts of themselves, but it doesn't actually neutralize the negativity, which is really only possible through integration.
Integration. This dude's severed. I don't want to agree because then they have a chance to do the thing with like, see, I'm right. The way that things are worded, some things just have to be true. There are parts of your relationships that have to be agreements that one person is just going to want more than the other because that's how life works. One of you is going to want to go out more. One of you is going to want to spend more money. One of you is going to care a lot more about how clean your house is than the other one. One of you is going to want to have sex a lot more. One of you is going to want to sleep more. One of you is going to want kids more. Regardless if that's 18 kids, 2 kids, or none at all. There are agreements there that have to be met. And there are times when those are actual deal breakers for your relationship. The kids one is big. You should not get into a marriage with someone who really wants kids when you don't. You should not get into a marriage with someone who is disgusting and doesn't ever clean anything when you need a clean house. You shouldn't get into a marriage with someone who believes you should each work 50-50, except one of you should do all the housework. Like, these are just common sense type things, not really like a deep conversation.
Instead, this disavowed negativity gets projected onto other people who are abstracted and dehumanized to facilitate the projection, hence the ad hominems and the insults. The tragic misunderstanding occurs when people attempt to eradicate their own projected negativity or evil by destroying the person on whom the negativity or evil was projected. Such people attempt to purge their own darkness by cleansing the world of anything that reminds them of the disavowed portions of themselves.
That is the entirety of the basis of this conversation. And you are not self-aware enough to realize that's what you just did. I, speaking as him, am not capable of understanding the irrationality that is love. And so I'm going to generalize and I'm going to rationalize everything and make it transactional. That is exactly what you just did. And exactly what you described other people do. Love is the scariest thing most of us will ever encounter. I'll say most. There are plenty of other things. To open yourself up completely and to trust fall forward into the person that you just pray loves you half as much as you think you love them is terrifying. But I don't know that I'd create an entire YouTube channel dedicated to making it sound like I'm a robot. I'm not. I'm a person, and I spend too many of my own years, days, months, weeks, minutes feeling, crying, alone. Unlovable as I am, or have been, I was never afraid of being unloved, rather loved by the wrong person. And I'm so lucky to have found the person that I think is the right one. But I would have wasted my time and the rest of my life treating love like a transaction instead of an expression. I love her the way that I want to be loved, and I've added in the ways that I know that she wants to be loved. And I have seen her do the exact same thing. That is such a beautiful thing to get to experience. I feel bad for people like him. I'm really glad that I just did not become one of them. I've been in relationships where I've gone, this is love. And at the time I thought it was. And now it wasn't. It wasn't. Whether it felt transactional or it was a very small bit of what love could have been, it wasn't. And I'm glad that I did not settle and was not settled for.
Of course, this never, ever works, which is why this ignorance is directly responsible for a great deal of the unnecessary pain and suffering that exists in this world. And here's one final thought. We can use the economic model to predict what demographic of people is most likely to take issue with the economic model. Think about it.
People who are in real love, people who are people and care about other people, and people who love their spouses, they're going to have a problem with this video. How dare you say that love should just be transactional?
If relationships ultimately are transactional, who do you think would be most opposed to this knowledge becoming more widely known? Cui bono? Those who typically benefit less from a mystified transaction, or those who typically benefit more? Without a doubt,
Okay, but that's a dumb thing to say.
would be those who benefit more who would take issue. And who typically benefits more from a relationship according to the economic model? Women. Whereas women mate and date for gain, men must resign.
Are you saying women are afraid of men treating love like a transaction because they would benefit less than because they would be loved differently in a negative way? I don't want my partner to treat love like a transaction because then I'm going to feel bad. I don't need a list of what I owe her, and I don't want her to feel like she owes me anything. I want to love and be loved. And it is not that deep, bro. It is not that deep, bro. It's probably something he's heard a lot.
Themselves to mate and date for acceptable loss. However, not all women benefit from relationships equally. What subsection of women typically benefits the most according to the economic model? Older women. Older women are very, very expensive. For instance, a 50-year-old woman no longer has any direct reproductive value, and she likely has finished raising any children she did have. She will also have become significantly less attractive as a sexual partner as she ages. Many of the goods for which men transacted their commitment will have ended by this time. However, men are still expected to provide provisioning and resources and exclusive commitment to these women for the rest of their lives.
For people who are marrying women, regardless of your gender, could you possibly love a woman after 50? Could you? I think I could. I'm going to assume you in the comments are saying you could. If you're this guy and you can't, consider that you're not looking for love, which is the easiest way to put this. You're not looking for love. You're looking for someone to house your babies. Do you think his economic business model of relationships includes women who want to work?
You might argue that this is due recompense for what these women did in the past, but those men probably did a lot in the past too. The upshot is that men are expected to pay the same price for a depreciating reproductive opportunity.
I think if you had this conversation with him, he would make a point of saying there's a difference between dating a 50-year-old woman for the first time and her having raised your children, but also like, you don't think you owe it to someone who raised your children as a person. You don't think you owe it to someone who raised your children to take care of them for the rest of their life? That feels like a promise that I would have made, and a promise that I would have tried really hard to keep. Not, all right, well, now that you can't have more babies,
which functionally renders that opportunity increasingly expensive as a function of time. So we can predict that the most aggressive opposition to the economic model of relationships will come from older women, precisely because older women stand to lose the most if this idea were more widely known. And if you observe who responds most obstreperously to my ideas online, you will find that this is exactly what happens. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below.
So if the people who are most likely going to say your idea is bad is older women, and the people who are most likely going to agree with your idea are young men, these older women have had to deal with these young men becoming older women and have said, yep, that sucked. So consider that you may want to have men who women their age are going to respect, and not men who are going to create a generation of women that then hate younger men. Older women, in a situation in which you're teaching young men who to be and how to act, should be a really, really good guideline of whether or not you're doing a good job. If the generation of women that had to deal with the men that you taught did not then like those men, you didn't do a good job teaching those men to be likable to women. And that doesn't feel like a deep concept. That feels like there's a cause, there's an effect. That sucked. For context, this was a 12-minute video and I've been recording for about 2 hours, which is why I'm saving the hour-long video for when I'm back home and it's just me and Toast. Yeah, that sucked. That sucked so much. If you made it all the way through that, thank you for spending time with me. It means a lot. I hope that I am not one of the people who makes you question your existence and go, why am I here? I know that these videos aren't always funny or informative. Sometimes they're a lot more one than the other. There are plenty of times where I just want to have conversations, and there are other times when I want to laugh. And I don't always want to mix them together, so I hope that that's okay. I'm going to go make a third cup of coffee and get started on editing this video. So I'll see you all soon. You don't have to say goodbye to me, but consider saying goodbye to Krobus, or the unnamed Junimo, or Huecoco, or my stepson, and looking at these cool stickers of my girlfriend. She also has them on her mic. That's her as Abigail from Stardew. Anyway, all right, get out of here. Go. Get away from me. I could do the film Cooper thing for the last 20 seconds where he's just like walking in the background yelling about something. Hold on.
Why is everyone not that big? It's just a pig, dude. It's just a pig. It's just a pig.